Woo, that's good. Ooh, I'm so excited for this conversation. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Tiana, back with another video. Today's video, we are going to be answering a comment that came from our community. This comment is for Gen Xers. So, Gen Xers, please come to the front of the classroom. I know that you really don't like the spotlight. And you really don't like accountability, but unfortunately today, it's your turn, baby. So, also apologies that this video took so long for me to make. This comment was literally made like months ago. But funnily enough, what we're going to be talking about today, topic wise, is kind of the reason that it took me so long to make this video. So this comment is by Angie and Bo. Firstly, thank you for the comment, which says, I'm 47 and my son is 29 and wants nothing to do with me. Why is that? Well, Angie, today we are going to break that down into a couple topics that we are going to dive into on a deeper level. And let's see if we can help you with understanding why your son doesn't want to have a relationship with you, especially because I am a millennial that was raised by Gen X parents. So maybe I can help bridge the gap a little bit. Please feel free to grab a notebook, a pen, paper, something to take notes if something hits or resonates with you. Also, feel free to drop a comment below of topics that you would like to cover that may be in this realm, or another topic that may have to deal with Gen X parents and millennial children. Even if you're baby boomers, I'll let y'all come in on the tea and the conversation as well. But the main topics that we're going to cover today are, and I have my notes here because I said some really good things and I'm going to be reading y'all, so don't judge me. Things we are going to break down in this episode are the values of Gen X versus millennials, mentalities and ideologies of Gen X versus millennials, the side effects of raising your children with a lack of empathy and sympathy, how phrases your parents taught you have burned the bridge between you and your own children. And lastly, why millennial children are done giving their Gen X parents a pass for not having a manual on parenthood. Because you know that's your favorite phrases. I didn't have a manual. No, y'all didn't come with instructions. Nobody taught me how to be a parent. And scene. Okay, guys, let's begin. So let's talk about the value systems of Gen Xers versus millennials. For those of you that are unclear, Gen Xers are born between the years of 1965 to 1979. So if you fall within that age range, you are officially a Gen Xer, okay? And the thing about Gen Xers is you all grew up in a time after the Cold War. And it gave you less time for idealism. Many of you were born to first generation immigrants. And while that did make you amazingly good at adapting to change and learning how to kind of go with the flow and surviving, it really robbed you of understanding. And honestly, it robbed you of being a child. So many Gen Xers, like, you guys' values are workaholics. You guys are all about working, working, working. Many of you have worked 12-hour shifts, 5 to 6 days a week, your entire working life. And so you're also very ambitious. And your idea of success is how much you produce. So it's not about you just existing as a human being. It's what are you contributing to society? What legacy are you leaving behind? How are you helping your family? That is what you have been taught makes you worthy. What makes you deserving of living a life at all is your ability that you can produce and the amount that you can produce and have produced within your lifetime. So it's understandable why Gen Xers have this very steely, stone, hard, numb, cold demeanor with the way that they have moved through life and their adulthood. Okay. So on the other side of that, we have the millennials. And if you were born between the year 1980 through 1994, you are officially a millennial. Welcome to the club. Now, millennials grew up during a time of new information and new technology. And so, growing up in the era of the budding technology gave us values like, work life balance, living a life through the lens of authenticity, you know, meaningful life experiences, progression, and really feeling like our work must be purpose or passion driven. And having all of those things has helped us to really push society forward as far as jobs are concerned, as far as technology is concerned, as far as opening up ways and avenues for future generations to make money and be successful without going the traditional route that our parents taught us, right? But we also learned our spirit of individuality. And we also still have some of those toxic traits of being overly ambitious, perfection, being workaholics, feeling like if we're not producing or not contributing to society, that we are nothing and we're worthless and we're nobody. And so we have these two ideologies that have kind of been at war within us our whole life. And so some of us chose to cling to the ideologies of our Gen X parents. And it's like, we see where that has gotten those millennials. And then there are other millennials that chose to grasp onto the ideologies of the future progressive millennial. And you see how that has affected and, shaped their life. But because these two ideologies don't really align, it's very difficult to try and get people that don't have the same values to coexist, much less cohabitate. Okay, so let's understand that our values are different. And so that can be something that pulls us apart, especially over time. To go along with that, let's also throw in the next subject, which is mentality. So let's talk about what is a mentality, firstly. Well, the definition of mentality is the characteristic attitude of mind or way of thinking of a person or a group. And when it comes to this mentality in particular, I want to talk about the mentality of Gen X versus millennials when it comes to things like pain, trauma, and abuse. Now, I'm just going to read because it'll be easier that way of explaining the difference between the two mentalities. So, the Gen X mentality. Basically, my caregivers hurt me and invalidated me. So it's only fair and right that I do it to you, my own child. And this is because when you have your kids and you see how difficult it is, you'll appreciate the ways I abused you. And you'll come back and thank me for raising you the way I did because it made you strong enough to carry the torch and keep perpetuating the cycle. And basically, I helped you help us continue our generations. Even if it was in an unhealthy, toxic way, bitch, you didn't. Did you die? But did you die? Like, that's the mentality of a Gen Xer. Everything is like, but did you die? You didn't? Great. Okay, then you don't have anything to complain about. Shut the fuck up. Next. Now, the millennial mentality, and I'm talking about those with good relationships with their children and or those of us that have decided to be child free. Our mentality is, you know, even though I can understand and empathize with your vantage point about my grandparents and great grandparents, I don't think it's healthy or a good idea to continue that cycle or generational pattern. And actually, I think what would be beneficial is to go and get some help, like go to therapy, do some journaling, explore my trauma, and find ways to process it because I'm still hurt and traumatized by your actions and behaviors towards me. And I don't think it's right or fair to pass that interaction on to my child because it hurt me greatly. And I want to love my child and support them, not give them my pain and trauma to deal with later in their life. And I think that may be the discord among generations that have an issue with millennials is like we were the first generation as like a majority to decide that what our parents gave us and taught us wasn't good enough and wasn't going to cut it for the children that we wanted to raise and bring up in society. And it's not to demonize and say that the people that came before us should, are bad people, but it's to say that if I was hurt by this person doing these things to me, I don't want to make my child feel that way, because my job as their parent is to love them, is to help them grow and evolve into the greatest, highest version of themselves. And I think it's interesting that Gen X parents always say, well, you know, I did this so that you could have a better life, so that you could be better than me. But then when millennials turn around and we are better than you, as far as being whole, happy, complete adults is concerned, like you also resent us for that. And so it's almost like Gen Xers, y'all got to pick a side. Like, are you only saying that you wanted your children to have a better life because it makes you look good? It makes you look like a great parent? Or are you genuinely proud that your children are doing better than you, even if it has cost you the relationship that you have with your child because you guys have different parenting styles and they disagree with how you raise them, and they don't want you to have that influence on their child, and the way that they are choosing to raise them. So drop in the comments, like, how do you feel about your mentality when it comes to being a parent and your children, and how do you think that has affected you all's relationship? Has it pulled you guys apart, as Angie and her son, or have you both kind of healed and been able to come back together? Let me know. So let's talk about the next topic, which is ways that Gen X parents may have raised their children that have contributed to their divide. And the biggest one that I can think of is a lack of emotional support and a safe space for your child to process their emotions. And the reason that this is dangerous is because this raises children to feel and think that their emotions don't matter, that their emotions aren't valid. And so they shouldn't even be sharing them or feeling them at all. And that sharing your feelings and emotions with others is unsafe and will get you negative consequences. It's kind of like the phrases, whenever we talk about them in just a second. One of the most harmful experiences I think a child can have is when their parent tells them to suck it up, or to stop crying, or I'll give you something to really cry about, because you're teaching your child that if they try to express their emotion, it's going to be met with violence. And so they try to push and suppress their emotions and numb out. I know a lot of millennials that are numb and how it's taken them a long time to feel safe feeling their emotions because they are afraid of a threat of violence, or they are invalidated whenever they do express an emotion. Their Gen X parent would basically tell them, you're not feeling what you're feeling, and even if you are, shut the fuck up about it. And so, Gen X parents, I want you to think about, have you ever done or said anything like that to your child? And if you did, depending on how many times that you've done it, especially if it was your repetitive thing, like daily or, for years and years, think about how that affects a child and why they may not want to talk to you, why they may feel unsafe sharing their emotions or things that are going on in their life with you. Okay. Another thing is feeling like providing 3D things like food, shelter, and clothing were enough to make you a good parent. I am so sorry to break the heart of Gen X, but doing the bare minimum for a child that you created that did not ask to be here and expecting a cookie for it, or a reward, or a pat on the back, or honor or respect in return is crazy work. I'm going to just tell you that all of y'all are delusional. Okay? Because children are receptive beings just like you are. Okay? So when you teach them that what matters and what's important is what you can buy and that you can make up for a lack of emotional support with gifts as an apology instead of an I'm sorry, you reinforce further that emotional support and having encouraging, nurturing community around you is not important. And so you teach them what is important are achievements, material items, and power and respect, but not love or compassion or understanding. And you wonder why there are so many loners. You wonder why there are so many children that, are disconnected from the family. And it's because you didn't teach them compassion. You didn't teach them understanding. You taught them that the thing that's important is to go get a good job so that I can brag about you and tell everybody how great of a job that my daughter has. You taught them that what's more important is that nice car outside. Yeah, no, my daughter has a huge house. My son has a Porsche. They bought me a condo in Florida so I can retire. But if they never come visit you in said condo, what was the point? Like, what are you getting out of it other than material things, you know? So, some of you also need to think about what are the values that you instilled in your children, and are they only like coming to pass because, again, karma is coming back to bite you in the ass, guys. I don't want to be the one to say it, but somebody needs to. A lot of you guys, karma is coming back around and you don't like it. And I'm sorry, but that's just something you guys are going to have to deal with. We dealt with it for however many years we dealt with it. You can deal with this video for a little bit. You're going to be a little uncomfortable, but you're going to be okay. Ooh, this one is going to be triggering for a lot of Black parents and the Black community in particular, because these are some of the most harmful, like dangerous phrases that I think a lot of us were raised on. And I want to drop in the comments below any of these three phrases that you heard that still affect you, or like they still get some sort of emotional pull from you, or how they affected you when you were a child. Okay, tell me in the comments below. So the phrase is, do as I say, not as I do. Now, the side effect of that phrase is that this teaches children that their actions don't matter and they should take zero accountability and responsibility for their actions, because what they say is what matters and what's true, not physical evidence that someone can see with their eyes that's contrary to your actions. And so this also teaches children to become things like pimps and players and scammers and narcissists, because they learn how to draw on people's emotions to get what they want without having to follow through on those words with their deeds and actions. And so you essentially have created a generation of ruthless, spineless humans that are all about preservation of self, not community and family. And guess what, guys? You guys are included in family. Just FYI. Another phrase is, children are to be seen and not heard. And this is one of the most detrimental things that you can say to a creative or artistic child in particular. And, this goes back to what we talked about earlier with side effects of raising children without certain types of emotional depth and familiarity. It's that you raise a community of children that do basically one of two things. So, one, they either grow up to rebel and they go all NWA and say, fuck the police, and do everything they can to be heard, since all their life they were told basically that their opinions and feelings don't matter. Or two, they become extreme introverts and they go into their shell, and then once they become of age, no one ever sees or hears from them again. Since actually this is the most hurtful thing about that phrase, is in our minds what you really meant, and honestly what you really meant, not even in our minds, this is what you really meant by that phrase at that time, was, you're here to do everything that I tell you to do without back talk, because that makes my life easier, and I give zero fucks about if you think that's unfair or don't want to do it. Shut your mouth about it and just do it, because it's what I need right now. So really, you place your needs over your child's in those moments when you say something like that, you're completely invalidating their existence, let alone their feelings. So just think about that, Gen X. Have you ever done that? Drop a comment. I'm going to be asking y'all to drop comments a lot because I really am interested to know who has had these experiences among the collective. Last phrase is because I said so. But this is with no proof of truth and or validity behind it, okay? So that's why this is dangerous. It's hypocritical. Mainly because if we were to say the same thing to you, you would ask us to come with proof and receipts backing up our statements. It's giving your word is not to be trusted and holds zero weight because you bend it to fit your will at any given moment like a tyrant. And who in the history of living ever said, we love tyrants? I mean, aren't they always seen as villains and in a negative light? So, what would make you think raising your child in the fashion of a tyrant would make them love you and want to be around you and to care for you on the other side of this equation? Hard stop. Think about that. Okay, and to wrap this up, the last topic that we are going to chat about is why children of the millennial diaspora are done giving their Gen X parents a pass for not having a manual on parenthood. So, in our minds, this is the biggest excuse of Gen X parents, and the one phrase that you guys like to use when it comes to fucking up your children. And you think it's the ultimate get out of jail free card. But the reason that it doesn't work is because we don't have a parenthood manual either. And because of this, most of us are starting to opt out of parenthood altogether since we see that we're not equipped for the job. Like, I'm not finna go apply to no job if I don't have the qualifications for that job. But that's what y'all did. Okay? We have the same social and familial pressures that y'all had at our age. But because we decided to go to therapy and do shadow work and journal and process our trauma and heal and feel our emotions, instead, we sit with ourselves and we really think if society's current ideology matches our own and the vibes that we have with our own ideology. And most of us are finding that it doesn't. So we're writing our own instead. And you all want to try and make us feel bad for that because y'all were too busy surviving to think about or worry about all that. But was your rent a minimum of $1,200 a month for a studio apartment? Because my mama was able to afford a 3-bed, 2-bath townhome by herself for like $700 a month. And that was back in 1996. Okay. And that's if you want to live in a decent part of town. Okay. You could still find some shitty apartments under $1,000 in the ghetto, but who wants to live in a ghetto? Okay. But your income, like, even if you found that apartment, the income that you make in today's society, it still isn't enough to keep you afloat because minimum wage has not kept up with inflation. And even those places are asking for 3 months rent as a security deposit and fair credit. Not even bad or poor credit, fair credit, 600 plus, okay? So as much as we want to get the fuck out of your house, you might want to talk to your president, Congress, all the people that are hiking up the rent prices to help brother and sister out and make rent affordable again, okay? And ultimately, aren't those yo parents and grandparents and fellow Gen Xers that have us in this situation anyway? Again, don't worry, I'll wait. Ponder on that. Okay, guys, I've gotten into Gen X enough for one video, but Angie, I really hope that this answers your question and sparks some sort of reflection, self-reflection, and conversation, either amongst you and your fellow Gen X parents or with your child. And if it has sparked a conversation or thoughts for anybody else, please drop it in the comments below. And if you have any other topics within this realm that you want to talk about and cover, let me know. I am actually considering starting up a talk show or a podcast where I can bring some of you guys live with me, and then you can tell me from your perspective about the topic. So if you would like that opportunity as well, please feel free to leave a comment or you can send me a DM over on my Instagram, which I will drop in the info box wherever we do the little description. But that's it, guys. I hope that you learned something, you took something away from this, and that it helps to add and enrich something to your life. But either way, I am going to get out of here. Always remember, love yourself, love others, and until next time, feel free to sip on this. Peace.